to TeqTalk, a show where we explore the technology shifts redefining enterprises today. I am your host, Jas Kaur, and in this episode, we are unpacking something that's quietly deciding the success and failure of an enterprise AI, the bridge between data engineering and AI engineering. Joining me today are two incredible minds: Anjan Reddy, who leads Edge to Data Services AI platform solutions at Cloudera, and Harshit Kohli, a senior AI leader with deep expertise in deploying machine learning at scale. All right, guys, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thanks, Anjan and Harshit, for taking out time and for doing this. So, before we actually go ahead and deep dive into our topic, why don't you give your introduction? Anjan, would you like to start?
So, myself, I am Anjan Kumar Ayadapu, a big data solution architect leader here with Cloudera. So, I am specialized in AI to edge platform solutions, and I have worked with different enterprise companies here to deliver all the innovation solutions, hybrid data platforms, leveraging generative AI, and security data management. And I earned my master's back in 2015 with University of South Alabama. Beyond that, I am a Docker captain. I am a senior member for IEEE member, and yeah, that's me.
All right, great. A lot of things, Anjan, I know you are doing. We'll talk about those in our later half of our discussion. But thank you. Harshit.
Thanks, Jas. Hello, my name is Harshit Kohli. I'm a senior technical account manager with Amazon Web Services. I've been with AWS for about close to 3 years now, and I've been in the IT world for about 15 years now. Worked with a lot of firms like Cloudera, HPE, Ford, Tech Mahindra, and multiple other organizations. So currently, my role at AWS is working with large enterprise scale customers, helping them in their analytics and cloud AWS journey, and also helping them to onload or understand the real potential of Gen AI applications or Gen AI onboarding, understanding where they want to go in that journey. Apart from that, I did my master's from University of Cumberland in information technology. I'm currently also pursuing a PhD program from the same university in information technology, and the specialization is artificial intelligence. In my extra set of roles, I do love to work on multiple research papers, present them in IEEE sort of forums. And then I also wrote a book recently on AI in healthcare innovation challenges as well. So I love to speak in various international conferences, national conferences, represent my organization, and do kind of multiple group talks and all those kind of sessions. So that's about me.
That's great. Great to know that apart from your 9 to 5 job, you're doing so many things, which is pretty impressive. All right, guys, I'm pretty sure that this discussion is going to be very, very interesting. So today's topic is from data engineering to AI engineering, and we'll know more that how do we bridge the infrastructure gap from you both. So I have a very interesting fact with me, and it's from McKinsey. And it is that despite AI hype, 80% of AI projects still spend time on data prep and not the model development. So you can know that how much time is being invested on the data preparation, right? So data engineering teams, they are mostly focused on pipelines, ETL, ELT, governance, while AI teams care more about your feature stores, GPUs, inference, APIs, model drift monitoring, and a lot of other things. So, and the problem is different tools and different SLAs. And often when they do not have a common shared contract, then there comes the gap where, weeks turns into months when you have to really deploy any AI application. Question to you, Anjan. Anjan, from your experience architecting large-scale data platforms, what do you think is infrastructure gap? Why it still exists? And how you can really start aligning these two worlds?
So to start with, right, we just need to understand basically the gap between data engineering and AI engineering exists because of two main things. Like, they have different objectives overall because those two are different roles. They have different tools, different expectations, right? So when we talk about specifically about data engineers, they, as you said, right, they are more focused into building reliable, compliant kind of pipelines, right? So to ensure data, what they do is they store securely, they govern the data, and everything comes into the picture. But when we talk about AI engineers, on the other hand, what they need is very flexible access to the real time data. So high quality of data is being trained, and they deploy all these models using machine learning, and everything. So the mismatch creates so much friction in such a way that, I'll give you an example where a data team might build a compliant storage system, but at that time, what exactly AI team needs there is a streaming data. Let's take, it could be a fraud detection, it could be anything, right? Similar to the data pipelines which were refreshed nightly, right? So if you have anything which is done like that, then the AI models where the AI engineers get involved, right? It takes, like, they talk about all the risk credit risk scoring or any kind of fraud detection. It can be anything which comes into the picture. So the main things comes into pictures are unified data,
Mm-hmm.
shared data, all the machine learning related data, and the pipelines which get integrated with MLOps, DataOps, and there are different functionalities around it. So yeah, these are a few things which always comes into my picture. And if you ask me about a simple use case, right? If we take about a real time data, which I was already talking in fraud detection, it's ideally since I'm working with the financial sector, I can talk about financial sector. So here, all the data engineers who work on all the stored transactions in a warehouse, they definitely need some help from AI team to substand, and then they do some kind of scoring around it, where these people implement Kafka, Flink,
Mm-hmm.
or all the real-time ingestion data for any kind of low latency features, any kind of deploying a fraud detection models via any kind of APIs. We have several nowadays, right? We all see several APIs around it. So yeah, this is one of the major difference which I think about as the mismatches, main mismatches, and then all things comes into picture, like different motifs,
Mm-hmm.
latencies, governance. So this all comes into picture. That's my perspective as of now. Yep.
Yeah, I think that is very well said, Anjan, that these two teams have their different objectives, perspective, and that is why the difference happens. But I would also like to understand that, how these teams can avoid friction. So we'll talk in the later half of the discussion. Moving to Harshit. Harshit, from your experience deploying AI models, what are most common data engineering bottleneck you run into, and how do you really solve? If you have some, real time insights or use case, that would really be great.
Uh, Great question, first of all. So, there are several bottlenecks which I have undergone in my experience, but the biggest ones are number one being data quality. I think what Anjan was also mentioning, data
Yeah.
quality and preparation is the biggest of the bottlenecks. We have customers, we have been working with numerous customers where they have spent years, like 10 years, 15 years plus, building their big data warehouses, building their data marts, and all those kind of big frames where they have entire data, right? Now, the customers or those clients are now struggling when employing these AI models because they have to ensure that the data is clean, it's consistent, it's properly formatted, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest thing what the customers are understanding with time now is that if you're sending the garbage in, the garbage will be out from the ML models, right? So that is the number one thing all the customers have understand, and they are working on cleaning their data, making the quality of the data much more good, right? That's the number one bottleneck. And there are certain common challenges as well. So there could be like missing values, there could be inconsistent formats of the data, there could be duplicate records as well. Like I wrote my book in AI in healthcare, and a part of
Mm-hmm.
that book was also covering the Bising. So we also covered like how the duplicate records are being handled, because I work with a lot of healthcare customers, right? So duplicate records and inconsistent formats and outliers is very common over there. So I have seen this happening where customers are struggling to ensure that the data quality is best and it's well prepared for the AI model. That is one of the bottleneck. And then adding on top of that, real-time data processing is like connected to what I said, right? So a
Yeah.
lot of times customers also struggle to understand that what is their latency requirement. I mean, there could be applications where you don't think that real time is a better fit, right? So it might not require even a millisecond level response time, or it
Mhm.
might require a millisecond response time, but the kind of service stacks or the kind of data you have is not as per the latency requirement. In my experience, I have gone those use cases with many customers with gaming industry, and I have seen customers where in gaming in the industry they want us to process the videos using models, but the
Mhm.
quality of the video or the pixels of the video are not that good. So I mean, it's tough for us to make sure that it is getting processed through the models, and we have to try hard to find out a very good model who can give them the insights or the results they want. So that is one of the bottlenecks I have seen.
Yeah. And how did you manage to solve these bottlenecks?
So while we are working with customers, we are ensuring that they can provide us better data, because
Mhm.
I mean, the training of the models will be as good as the data is, right? So we
Right.
ensure that they provide us good data. I mean, minor kind of problems are okay with the data. We can help them, or the models are smart enough to detect those and help them. But when the problem becomes more serious, like you have very blurred kind of video, or you have something missing in the data or missing in the video, even the models are not that smart, or they are not that super geek to identify what is there in the video itself, right?
Mhm.
So often it comes from the source. I mean, minor hiccups are fine, but we work with the customer team, or we work with the end source team to make sure that they provide us at least good quality samples on which we can train the models.
Absolutely. I think that's a very important point. You both have highlighted that data should be of the best quality.
Right,
And without data, nothing great can happen if it is not good. So, bad data will give you bad output, as simple as that.
right.
So, very well said. And I think all the leaders in different organizations I talk to, they have the same perspective as well, that work on data quality, which is the primary focus before actually they build anything on top of it. So, when we talk about data, again, there are a lot of things, right? And data contract is one of the things, because if you do not have data contract articulated at the very foundational level,
Mhm,
then it might break the system, over time.
mhm.
And let me know from you both that how do you actually implement data contracts? Or if you haven't implemented data contract, then how it has got implemented in your organizations, so that AI models which you are building have really given the great output.
Yep, sure. I mean, I can take up that question. So, I mean, with some customers, and again, I've worked with numerous customers on multiple design domains, like retail customers are there. Then we also have telecom customers, right?
Yeah.
And so defining schema is very important when you are trying to implement the data contracts, right? So you need to explicitly know, like, what is the data type, what is the format, what kind of structure you need. And then quality expectation is another thing. Like, you need to define acceptable ranges, right? This is my defined metrics, and these are the expectations I need to have my insights for. And you can very well specify the allowed categorical values as well, right? And then versioning of that is also important, right? If you want to implement semantic versioning for data schemas, that also helps. I'll give you a very interesting use case or an
Yeah.
example. So I was working with one of the customers where they were using like raw xmls and raw text files, and they were
Mhm.
trying to process that to real-time streaming solutions, and then they were using the AI models to generate some insights on top of that, right? And they were trying to build some agentic AI bots on top of that. Now, the problem was that if the schema evolves, or let's say if something happens to the schema, then
Mhm.
they will either have to go back and redesign the solution, or
Right.
they have to make the model smart enough to detect those and implement those within the framework, right?
Mhm.
So that is where we work with the customers, so that they understand that they use the best schema enforcement tools. Like, they can use technologies like Apache Avro or Protobuf, right? Avro is kind of the latest file formats, comes with schema evolution and everything. So we suggest customers to use those kind of data formats. And then we also consider like TensorFlow data validation for ML specific pipelines as well. So that is one another factor where we suggest customers to mainly emphasize the data formats, and also consider TensorFlow kind of data validation for ML specific pipelines as well.
Great. Do you think feature stores can really help in such cases where, because without a feature store, data engineer can keep on rebuilding the assets and AI engineer can, start debugging the mismatches if there are any, and the release cycle can really stretch from weeks to months, right? So one of the examples I have read is that Uber's Michelangelo platform that really solves the AI problem. It creates, single store for both training and serving, and that can cut the cost by 90%. So, Anjan, if you would like to take this, when should a company invest in feature store, and how do you integrate actually it with the existing data warehouse or lakes?
So, to start with, right, again,
Mhm.
when we talk about feature store, it's actually a bridge between data teams, AI teams, and the business.
Yeah.
So, what exactly or how exactly it involves is basically data teams, they enforce all the governance and the
Mhm.
quality of this feature level.
Yeah.
When it comes to AI team, they guarantee the consistency between the training and the interface.
Mm.
And then they try to eliminate any kind of other trainings or serving queues. When it comes to the business, it creates a reusable library for the financial intelligence. So when we talk about if we talk about an financial industry, right?
Mhm.
So there, the data engineer, the AI teams, they talk about different languages. They focus on different things like security, compliance, high pipelines, model experiment, trainings, real models, everything.
Yeah.
So in this situation, right? If since I'm working with financial company, if they want to invest on future store, then they consider several factors, like multiple models to share the same feature is one of them. Real time data, including a batch interface, because all the banking sectors, they also want to refer to not only real time, but they want to refer the historical data. And of course, or not, this is very important for any organization. It is the compute, the cost,
Yeah.
how it works, and then we have frequent recycling things. How can we reuse them, how can we
Mhm.
govern them, and also the auditable things.
Mm.
Those all comes into picture when you think about investing your money. So if any of these features
Mhm.
are considered within your company or enterprise, right, then that is when it is the right time to invest in the feature store. That is
Yeah.
how several financial companies move forward, and then they take care of it. And then we are talking about integrating different warehouse models here, right?
Mhm.
When we talk about it, then we are trying to talk about three different models which I can talk about at a glance. One, the warehouse centric, where this is a model for all the banks,
Mhm.
right? Storing all the business intelligence and then trying to run some SQL queries on top of it, defining several new features around it, and then trying to use several ETL tools, or they use the data warehouse like snowflakes, BigQuery, Redshift, everything. So that is one of them. The second one is the lake centric. When we talk about lake centric, we are talking about the model is typically using all the financial banks, adopting different formats. So in today's world, there are several formats. Like Parquet, Delta. Recent times we saw Iceberg. There are several Iceberg tables on several distributions like S3, Cloudera, HDFS, and several other things. So this lake centric model is more into like providing batch and stream pipelines, and they
Mhm.
are using both model training and the real time serving as well. And the final thing, which is where everyone wants to move towards, is a hybrid model. So hybrid model is both,
Sorry.
it combines both the elements for both warehouse as well as the
Mhm.
lake centric. So that is where people are trying to move forward. The place where I work right now, they also are already into hybrid model. They serve the purpose of both being on cloud
Mhm.
and being on prem, and then serving all the enterprise clients, which includes all the financial clients. Yeah, there is a big workflow around it, or a flow diagram, I can say, but I don't want to talk about it. But yeah, that is how it is, and then that's where you invest, and then that's the models which we talk about.
Yeah, great. And Harshit, from your side, from the AI end, right? What does a good feature store unlock that a normal warehouse cannot have it?
Yeah, so I mean there are several advantages of using a feature store,
Mm-hmm.
and what Anjan was mentioning, just adding on top of that. So there could be ML specific data serving, right? So you could have a low latency feature retrieval for both like training and inference, and then you could also have consistent feature transformations, right? So it's across like whatever features you are trying to deliver or transform, you have across training and production environments. Now, another good point, which I think Anjan was also mentioning around, was storage patterns. So recently, we also started using, or we started seeing customers extensively using vector embeddings, right? So
Yeah.
they're using a lot of vector embeddings for deep learning applications or time series optimizations or more, I mean, efficient data storage formats as well. Now, for vector embeddings, I mean, I do have a classic use case on which I'm working recently. So there is this customer who is trying to process a video, and then they're trying to generate some scouting reports out of from that, and then they also plan to make some comparisons going forward based on some historical data, right? So with these kind of use cases, vector embeddings plays a major role, because
Mhm.
let's say you process a video, you're able to store those embeddings in OpenSearch or S3, and then from there on you can use those embeddings to generate the insights you want, and it's very efficient, because let's say the video is of 2 hours duration or a
Mhm.
4 hours duration or a 5 hours duration.
Yeah.
This vector embedding support helps you to support all those kind of extensive and deep learning applications. And that is where a good feature store will always be better than a normal data warehousing solution,
Mhm.
because the data warehousing solution can excel at analytical queries and reporting, but the feature store will always, it's always built for the unique requirements of machine learning systems, right? So it's actually bridging the gap between both the data engineering and ML operations for you.
So, what is stopping the organizations to really adopt the feature store concept? Either it is too expensive or there is some other reason. Would you like to talk about it?
Yeah, so it's not about too expensive. It's just about understanding your data and your use case in a much more detailed fashion.
Mhm.
Because at this point of time, I still feel that only 30 to 40% of the organizations are yet prepared for jumping on the AI and ML workloads or deploying their solutions on AI ML. Because the number one steps which everybody agrees right now is taking baby steps,
Mm.
not jumping on the gun, taking baby steps and understanding your use case in detail, collaborating with multi teams within your organization so that you are not misusing AI for your use case. So not everything can be AI. We need to understand this. There are certain specific use cases which are meant for AI. So the number one step, I think, where majority of the organizations are trying to invest more and more of time is understanding and figuring out the use case.
Yeah.
And that is where they're investing time. So it's not about stopping them. It's just about they're trying to take some baby steps so that they don't make wrong decisions later on.
Yeah, and I think that's very, very valid as well. That without understanding, I have seen organizations that on the pressure, right, the peer pressure or other companies' pressure, they build the POCs, do not understand their use cases, and ultimately it never scales.
Yep.
So understanding the use case, which is really going to give the ROI, makes more sense than just putting on anything. So that's right. Now, companies, I think, have a lot of companies have already invested their time and effort on a couple of basic POCs. Now, to scale more, they're looking out for strengthening their use case, and I think that is a very valid point as well. You mentioned, and I know that we have already touched base a little bit on the real time scenarios, the real time data input, and all of that. I think you both are working on the real time injections, right?
That's right.
Uh, be it retail or healthcare or any other company, everybody now wants real time data intake, real time interactions, basically. So,
Right.
from both of you, I would like to know, tell me the first couple of steps a batch based organization need to start to really move into the real time AI predictions or projections.
When we talk about the real-time pipelines and what actually drive this AI into financial companies is basically, it's very nice to have, but whether it's the first step which we take or what exactly we need to think before we go into it,
Hmm.
right? So every financial company, no matter what, everyone wants to go with the latest technologies, latest things. and they want to go into it. But there are a few companies who step back first and then analyze few things before they go into production. Like, and there are several places where, if you want to go towards any kind of a real time data or event related stuff, right? Firstly, they think about what is the data injection layer, why do we need it, how do we make decisions which requires several platforms, on what basis we do it. So this all comes into picture. Let's say, you want to use a cloud system itself, you want to use some open sources like Kafka, Flink,
Yeah.
some different data platforms. So they consider everything into this layer. And and then they also think about, the data lake. Why do we need a data lake? Why I mean, when we think about like that, when we question ourselves or when the company questions themselves, right, then they think about different use cases around it. So let's say when we have a situation where you need to combine the data and stream it in a unified lake, right? Then it talks about different new technologies which comes around it. Like, it could be like Iceberg, it could be some different data lakes, which provides both historical and the in-flight data. For, I mean, the main purpose of this is, getting to know the latest technology, getting to know how AI works, getting to know the latest information on flight, getting to train all of your models, and then those all comes into picture. So how do you serve the layer? How do you support it? It comes where you need to make sure that, before also we talked about all the, the AI engineering and the other engineer persons, everything comes into picture. So we have to make sure, when we talk about all the real time data, then we talk about the event driven structures, we talk about monitoring, we talk about feedback of how it works, we talk about detecting models, featuring models, we talk about everything. That's how, the first step is to think about how it works, where it works, how are we governing it, how are we securing it, and then it moves on. That's my perspective
Yeah,
here.
I think, yeah, that's very valid and excellent point you have mentioned, that before actually moving on to the real time or streaming, you have to review your various factors. And Harshit, from your vantage point, what are some of the infrastructure upgrades, that are non-negotiable if you want to go ahead and, move towards the real time AI?
If I talk about the infrastructural upgrades, I mean, what I feel is, since everybody is mostly working on the cloud these days,
I have some customers, they are still on on-prem.
yeah,
A
yeah, I mean,
lot of customers.
I have few, not few, more than few customers who are still on on-prem because these
yeah,
are financial clients, right? They're,
exactly.
yeah, they're not so ready to go with cloud so far.
Yeah. So I'll take a step back from there. So let's say if you're working in a hybrid model, or if you're working completely on-prem model, or if you're working completely over the cloud. So let's consider all the three scenarios, right? So understanding your current infrastructure and then planning your infrastructure for the real-time AI is super critical, right? Now, when I say that, is what I mean is the job of your stakeholders along with your requirement managers becomes critically important, right? Now, here is the problem, and this is what happened with multiple customers. You come up with a use case, you try to implement a real-time AI, but while you are halfway implementing the POC, you suddenly realize that the requirement suddenly got changed, or you understood the requirements in a different manner, right? So that is where I said that understanding the requirements and locking the requirements from the stakeholder side or from the requirement manager side becomes critically important. Now, once you have those requirements logged, you need to plan your infrastructure based on that. If you are on cloud, you need to consider technologies like serverless is one of the things where you don't need to bother about infrastructure, right? You can design your applications, design your workloads without the hassle of like disturbing the infrastructure. If you're on-prem, you need to effectively plan, coordinating with your stakeholders and with the requirement managers that, okay, what should be my future infrastructure be like? Also considering the buffer amount in case. So let's say if you want to consider 4 gigs of RAM in future, and you think that, okay, based on my scalability in the future, I could go up to 8 gigs of RAM, right? So that should be also incorporated in your infrastructure decisions right away. It shouldn't be that, okay, in the future I'll think over it and then maybe we'll scale based on that, right? Then The second point is investing in skills development is also super critically important.
Mhm.
Now, what we have seen is people know what the use case is, customers understand what the use case is, customers understand that the future infrastructure should be A, B, or C, but they are lacking the skills within their teams. They're lacking the skills within their teams where it creates a gap. They have the infrastructure ready, they have the use case ready, but the teams are not skilled, or the teams require enough time to prepare themselves so that they can start implementing the things on that infrastructure.
Yeah, and I think just would like to add one thing on the team
Mhm.
building or team skill set building. Things are changing so fast, right?
Yep.
So again, it becomes very difficult for a team as well to know where to go
Yep.
and what are things to learn. There are so many things in the market to learn that it again becomes a kind of chaos, that making your team understand that okay, these are the things related to AI you have to learn, these are the things related to AI tools you need to learn.
Yep.
So I think that kind of clear vision a leader should have to provide his or her peers so
Yep.
that the team can be built in a proper manner.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I don't suggest, or I don't think that customers think in this format that jumping the ship every time is possible, because you might be working in X segment or X team, and then you see, okay, Y team is only working on AI.
Hmm.
Why not my team is working on AI? So let me change the team, and then I can start working on AI, right? Instead of that, what the teammates or what the team members can plan is, within my space, do we have use cases where we can implement AI in bits and pieces, or we can start small. That is one way of looking at it. And then when you start small, you start getting enough ideas so that you can build good solutions on top of your good foundation. And
Hmm.
that is what is very important, because these days what I'm seeing is people are running after AI. There is so much happening, and you think,
Yeah.
okay, if I don't learn AI, I will be behind in the race. I mean, true, you will be behind in the race, but we also need to understand that within your space, or within what you know or what you're working on, whether AI is a great fit. And if yes, then start implementing that in small and decent sizes enough.
to
Yeah.
to to add on to it, right, Jesse? I changed myself. Started with Unix,
Yep.
then changed to Hadoop, then
Mhm.
changed to hybrid cloud HI, and now I'm moving towards AI and machine learning. So again, it depends upon your use case, and not only about how you're working, it also depends upon yourself as well. What do you want to learn? Do you
Yeah,
want to
it's the personal interest as well, which is important.
exactly, and do you want to go with the market? Do you want to stay with the latest technologies?
Yep.
Then
Mhm.
you go with it, right? So that's how you keep learning yourself as well, and then trying to help the companies as well. If
Yep.
companies support you, then that's very good, but or else you yourself can learn as well.
Mm.
Yep. So if
Yeah.
we talk about developers, right? I mean, a lot of developers are recently complaining that AI is going to take up their jobs, right? I mean, first the first thing everybody needs to understand is AI is there for facilitation. It's not for occupying your job, or it's not there for replacing your job, right? Let's say there is a coder, or there is a developer who is writing code. So there should be good AI tools which can integrate with your IDE, so that you can get better results, you can get better testing, you get a good product out of it,
Right.
and wherever you were investing 4 hours, now you only need to spend 30 minutes, and
Yeah.
Exactly.
your actual productivity is getting utilized.
The data itself is not
Yeah.
used, right? So if a coder is trying to use the same code which or trying to modify the existing code, obviously, right, he will take 3 hours instead of 1 day of debugging. They will take few months of debugging to see why the code is not working. So you it's not always you depend upon the AI and everything, but I mean, when you try to code yourself, right, you'll understand each and everything, and then that's how you have to take it. So yeah.
Hmm.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, 30 minutes of coding is good, but how AI helps, and what I've seen practically happening is, because we have a lot of customers. I mean, almost people who are on cloud or on AWS cloud, they are using Lambda and step functions, right?
Yeah.
Right, right,
People who are using Lambda, mostly, I mean, every once in a year, or let's say once in 2 years, they have Lambda runtime upgrades, and they plan to upgrade their Python runtime version from, let's say,
right.
3.9 to 3.11, right? So that is where we have seen AI tools helping them a lot. The effort which they were spending in months to upgrade those runtimes is now in hours, right?
Right.
That is where you can see the beauty, because you are able to upgrade those runtimes. The major involvement of the time is during your testing phase, and the reason why it happens in testing, because you are trying to map your upgraded runtime product to your use case,
Right.
right? So you're trying to make sure that that mapping is perfect, it has not broken somewhere in the middle. So that is what your time is getting spent on, and that's a very fair ask. So it's okay that it's reducing your time, but it's asking you to invest your time on some other productive features or some other productive work.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I think both of your
And
points
these
are
upgrades
very
never
valid.
stop to start
Yeah.
with, right? These upgrades never stop. They keep on updating based upon different vulnerabilities, different bugs,
Right.
different use cases, which the enterprise people or the financial people bring in, saying that the currently this we need this feature, and then you get a latest software.
Right.
Like the
Mhm.
upgrades of the products always keeps updating, and you have to change your code accordingly.
Correct.
Let's talk a little bit about governance. Harshit or Anjan, what do you think a responsible AI engineering really looks like? So, you both have been working
Mhm.
in regulated industries like healthcare and finance. You do PII masking before ingestion, full audit trails, kill switches for runways,
Mhm.
automations if needed. So, tell me what exactly is responsible AI engineering in your terms?
So let me take this. So basically, a responsible AI engineer means embedding some trust, fairness, and accountability in all the entire life cycle of that particular AI system. So it starts from data ingestion, training your models, and to deploy and monitor. So this
Mm.
all comes into picture. Let's take in a real time scenarios in right. So what you have to do is it talks about how do you govern the data? What is the linkage between it? So making sure all the data feeding the models is clean, unbiased, and fully traceable. So that is first thing which comes into picture. And then how do you explain your model? So what kind of models and how the decisions comes upon based upon the explanation of both users and regulators. And also we talk about biasing here, the fairness checks. So when we talk about biasing and fairness checks, I talk about continuous testing of all the data which is coming in, and mitigating things like rebalancing and other features which we
Mhm.
previously talked about. When we talk about security and privacy, we are always, I mean, being a AI engineer, they no matter what, whether you're AI engineer, data engineer, or be it any engineer, this ensuring compliance with industry regulations is what gives you a strong control over what you're doing.
Mhm.
And then continuous monitoring comes into picture. So how do you do it? You create a model around it, reframe it, retrain it with all different predictions, and align with what is today's reality. And
Yeah.
no matter what, we always talk about this as human intervention is always there. We
Mhm.
need to keep human in there no matter what. If you are an AI engineer, it doesn't mean that everything is taken care by the artificial intelligence and you don't get involved there. You still get involved there, designing different workflows, making sure all the artificial intelligence documents which comes into picture, you take a decision based upon all the artificial intelligence provides you. And then at a high risk, you take care of it. So it's not like I mean, I'm not talking about AI engineering just being a compliance checkbox here, but they take care of the discipline that ensures and drives your business around it. So yeah, I'm just talking about some real, I mean, retail banks where we talk about it, where they have several challenges, right, regarding expandabilities, where they have risk of bias, where they talk about compliance issues. All the banking companies, no matter what they come, they talk about compliance, security. This is very important in the real time. So the major responsibilities will be, I mean, we talked about this as well, data contracts, right?
Mm.
We talked about data contracts. Here it comes into picture. So
Yeah.
what is your role? What are you leading? And the bias mitigation, explainability, continuous monitoring, this all comes into picture.
Organizations or industry cannot afford to literally breach any of the compliance.
Any, be it any company, right? No one wants to get breached, or no one wants to
Yeah.
a fraud around you, or getting your data being corrupted. No one wants to do that. So security is the first thing which comes into picture. That's where I always talk about, right? Even though we have the cloud available, there are several banking companies or institutions who still are not ready to go with cloud, because they don't want to store the data in cloud. They want to keep their data within themselves, having an on-premise machines. And if you see, right, there are several data centers around right now.
Yeah.
So they don't want to exploit the data. So that's where they, whenever there is a chance of you call it as NPI PI data, right? So those, whenever there is a concept of that, then banking companies always think about whether to share the data or whether not to share the data. If you're sharing the data, then that is a data which can be shareable. If you're not sharing a data, then that is not shareable. So they restrict the data, and then that's how things go on.
Yeah, I think this is one of the first steps any company organization, especially the sensitive organizations, right? Sensitive industries like finance, healthcare, all these, at least they should be adhering to it 100% without any default. But sometimes we see that even in that case, even if they want, some kind of breaches still come up. So Harshit, from your side, would you like to add on to what Anjan mentioned?
I think you all might have heard a very famous quote where it says, with great power comes great responsibility, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So AI is giving you that power. AI is giving you that efficiency where you can work at 10x speed and you can deliver results, right? But at the same time, as Anjan was mentioning, you need to be responsible enough. And when we say responsible enough, what we mean is the security should be top notch. You should test your models across diverse subpopulation. It should not be having any kind of biasing. And I'll give you a very recent example. So I was working on a couple of research papers like last few months. One of the research papers was around customer segmentation on how you can predict the customer churn. And the second paper was a healthcare research paper where I was working on to predict the diabetes, considering a model data set, and I was trying to predict what's the efficiency with which a model can predict diabetes, right?
Yeah.
In both those research papers, we made sure that we are able to handle biasing, because there will be data in which you will always get results which are inclined towards a particular, let's say, sex, or let's say a certain community. So you'll have to make sure that you used algorithms or you use models which are able to mitigate the bias and they're able to identify those bias. So that is important. Security is important because when we are working with healthcare customers, we have HIPAA, we have all those kind of security guidelines around where they want to ensure that the data is secure and we are not sharing the data and we are not playing around with the data. So the data should be secure and the data should be within the system, and it should only be there for the parties which are intending to use that, right?
Yeah.
And at the very end, you also need to maintain complete documentation, whether it is including data lineage. Data lineage is also very important because you need to understand from top to bottom what's the flow of the data, right? I mean, how the data looks like. If somebody comes new and they want to understand, they should not waste enough efforts to understand the lineage and understand what we did with the AI models or the AI workloads. And then understanding limitations is also important because not every model can produce what you want. So there are certain limitations, there are certain quotas attached to those models or those AI workloads as well. So that's what I feel should be a responsible AI engineering in my aspect and what I've seen customers do it.
Yeah, I think that's great. You both covered actually all the points and thoughts which I had as well. So let's move on to the future trends. So we are seeing a lot of convergence, like Snowflake with Cortex, Databrick with Mosaic AI, where data and AI are building on the same stack. I think in next 3 to 5 years, we won't even talk about bridging the gap because the gap will vanish. Somehow they'll just be aligned together. But only if the organizations modernize now. So, what one capability you think will define AI native data platforms? Open question to the forum.
Yep. So from my understanding, I think semantic understanding, self-optimization is important because as AI is growing and as AI is evolving while we are talking, right? So autonomous relationship discovery is important, right? How the two data sets are connected to each other and automatically detecting that relationship without explicitly mapping them. That is super critical, right? And then dynamic optimization also comes into my mind, like how you can optimize the storage, access patterns based on the usage. And then we all know, I mean, these days, AI is taking care of everything. Like you have agentic AI bots, you have MCPs, and you have so many things coming up in the picture. If you're able to handle these autonomous relationship discovery and dynamic optimization, then I think it's a good way. And this is where we can define good AI native data platforms as well.
My first thing, if you're
Yeah.
defining it right, I will be going with the real time governance feature delivery, which is a one time thing, which is one capability thing, uh, which has an ability to combine both historical and streaming data, which can be governed. So once you have governed, then that is where you have the real time machine learning monitoring or everything comes into picture. Yeah.
Great. With that said, we have come to the last segment of the panel discussion, bridging the gap between AI and data engineering and the best practices. Okay, so moving on to our last segment, where I would like to know more about you both on what extra things are you doing apart from your 9 to 5 job and helping the community. Is there anything you're doing to give back the community, or any newsletter or book published? I know, Harshit, you mentioned that you have been writing the book. So tell me more about your journey, how it's going on.
Yeah. So apart from my 9 to 5 job, I'm also involved with the PhD program, which I'm doing right now. So that is taking my good amount of time because I have to write good research papers and then do my assignments, connect with my peers. So that is taking good considerable amount of time.
Is AI really helping you there in writing research papers, or it's all still manual?
So in a bit, but I mean, every university has got plagiarism kind of checks happening at their side. You can't just blindly rely on the AI writing a paper. So you'll have to put in your sincere efforts over there. That is extremely important. Apart from that, what I'm also doing is right now I'm also involved in writing a few of the book chapters around agentic AI. That is one of the things.
Pretty interesting. What's the name of the book if it is already launched?
The name is not yet out. So right now we are just collaborating on the chapters. The title and all those things is yet to be decided. But that will be around agentic AI, MCP servers, on how the future, and Bising is one of those things which we were discussing. That is also in the place. And we are not just, I mean, we are just not targeting single sector. We are targeting multiple sectors like healthcare, finance, retail, supply chain. All those sectors would be covered over there.
Great, interesting.
Yeah, so that is other thing. And then I am supposed to present a research paper. I think this month end it will be around it will be an IEEE conference. I'm presenting a research paper over there. That is one of the other things I'm planning to do. And then I mean I'm completely involved with some judging activities as well, because there are some organizations who need some experienced people who can judge hackathons or who can judge various kind of conference papers or peer review papers. So I'm involved in those as well, because that also contributes to my PhD efforts as well. So yeah,
great. I think that's a lot you're doing, and I'm surprised that, I mean, it's tough to manage the time, right? If you have
weekends are all busy, I'll say.
Yeah, great. How about you, Anjan? I know you are also doing a lot of things.
Yeah, I mean, to add on with Harshit, right? I'm almost there in the same boat, but doing different things. So, I mean, he's writing a book around genetic AI. I'm writing a book around Docker getting involved with genetic AI. So, being a Docker captain, I'm working on a book related to it. And I have been involved in different Docker communities where we are working on different coding, because everyone thinks Docker is now on a sinking boat. But people who are in the Docker community, we are still trying to make sure that Docker is up and everyone still uses Docker. That's where we are writing several books, several blogs around it, several articles to make sure the public get to or reach this community as well. And apart from that, I'm also working with different organization conferences where I'm judging people on different genetic AI articles around it. And I might not be doing PhD, but I am doing certifications related. I mean, as I said in the beginning, right? So I'm just
Yeah.
trying to build myself
Great.
around all
Great.
the things. And then, yeah, apart from that, I have two kids who always keeps me busy. So I have sleepless nights, so enjoying that.
One is the newborn, so I think.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
she's,
Thank you so much for taking our time and talking to us. I know how it goes.
yeah,
So, all right. Thank you, both of you. So, the key takeaway is that AI is not a layer on top of your data stack, it's the reason to modernize your data stack. So, thank you so much, Harshit and Anjan, for sharing such valuable insights. And to our listeners, ask yourself, if you shipped an AI model into production tomorrow, how is your data infrastructure be ready to carry it all the way without breaking? All
yeah.
right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.